Hello everyone, welcome back to our series of second level student revision course with myself, Mary Scully, and I'm joined by Mary Shalley. Today is webinar number 5, so our second last webinar, and we've hoped you've enjoyed webinar 1 to 4 already, where we looked at understanding myself as a learner, how does my memory work, revision strategies in webinar 3 and 4. So Mary has brought us through lots of really great information and resources that we can dip in and out of in preparation for our Leaving Cert that is coming up soon. So today we're going to look at exam techniques in this first one, and we're going to look at exam techniques again in our last webinar. If you have any questions coming out of today's webinar, do get in touch with us at info@dyslexia.ie, and we'll be more than happy to help you. So I'm going to hand over to Mary Shalley there now, and she's going to take us through today's presentation. Thanks, Mary.
Hi, you're all very, very welcome back, and hopefully you've got some benefit from the previous webinars. And now what we're going to look at is examination techniques. And in one of the previous webinars, I put up a slide and it said, examinations are not a measure of intelligence. They really are just a process. And that's something we need to remember. Most children who don't do well, or young people who don't do well in exams, simply don't understand the process of the examination. And that's where they actually let themselves down, not because they are not intelligent, or not because they haven't done enough revision. The fact is they don't understand the examination. And that's what we're going to look at over the next 2 webinars, is actually techniques to do well in the examination, to let the examiner know what you know, and to look at some of the pitfalls that you may have if you have dyslexia, and to watch out for these when it comes to the examinations. So we're going to look at exam techniques. And before your exam, so you've done all your revision, so you've got this idea of, what do I need to know well to do well? What do I need to know in this exam? Get a copy of the syllabus and literally tick off every single thing on the list. Now, this year you're at a slight advantage because your teachers will have told you some of these things may not be on the examination this year because of the support that you've been given from the COVID pandemic. Find that information out. Don't go into the exam and think that wasn't there, and then you speak to somebody after the exam and they say, Miss Smith told us that last week, that photosynthesis wasn't going to be on this science paper. So find that information out, plan your revision, and practice your questions. Exam simulation is so, so important. You need to practice, 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 and practice your exam questions, because that is the only way you'll find out if you don't know something. Okay. So before your exam, planning a week of study means deciding what you will study every day for a week. Not, lots and lots of information of things that don't matter, but what you're actually going to do. This is getting near the exam time. So this is your planning needs to really, really be robust at this stage. What am I going to study this week? Planning reduces your stress because it helps you know that a task is doable, that you can actually do this task. Make a timetable and decide what topics and subtopics you're going to study at what time. In other words, don't just write down geography. That means nothing. Geography is far too wide at this stage. You need to be bringing it right back down to think, am I looking at the central business district? What is in a central business district? Am I going to be secure in that at the end of this week, that I know that piece of information for geography if that's in your examination? And you also need to be thinking about practice your exams. There's no way, if you were learning to drive, there's no way you'd pick that book up and you'd learn all about that book and then expect to go and pass your test, because it's not going to happen. You need to practice the exam. And this is where so many students spend hours and hours and hours revising. And the first time they do the exam is when they go into the examination. And what happens then? They find out what they don't know. That's the wrong time to find out what you don't know. So just the same as you wouldn't read a book about driving a car before you do your test, or you wouldn't read a book about playing hurling and how to put the ball over the bar without practicing, examinations are no different. Everything in life you need to actually practice for the event. And there is so much support there to help you practice for the event. And this is what you need to be doing now. The examination is an event and you need to practice for that event at this stage.
That's exactly what I was going to say there, Mary. Exactly like you've just said, because there's no point having all the information, doing your study on your geography or your physics or whatever, and then going in and not having practiced the actual exam paper or being familiar with it, or where's my short questions, where's my long questions. It's really important where to know where the pressure points are going to be. Yeah, it's a really, really good point you've made.
And I think it's really important. And that's where so many young people
Yeah.
actually fall down in exams, not because they don't know their stuff,
Hmm.
because they don't know what's expected of them in the exam.
Exactly. Yeah.
And exams are designed not to catch you out. They're designed to help you show what you know.
Hmm.
Examiners want you to show them what you want to know. And they're an opportunity for you to demonstrate your knowledge. And we like to, examiners, when you're marking exams, you like to give marks. Like I've marked exams for years in the North and A levels, and you mark those exams and you really look for marks. You try to help the young people because you know, and examiners are not scary monsters. They
Mm.
know, and they've probably children themselves, and they want young people to do well. And they look for marks and they try to find the marks for you. They can be completed in the allotted time. There is enough time to complete that exam. There's a lot of research has went in, a lot of time has been developed. This 3-hour exam isn't just a magic number that somebody has come up with. They've worked out that majority of students can complete that in the allotted time, and they've actually added a wee bit extra on. So there's plenty of time to do the exam. It's not about memory or intelligence. It's about preparation, being ready to get in to do that exam and practicing those exams before you go in. Okay. And to try to reduce this anxiety. If you have practiced the exam, your anxiety is reduced because you know what to expect. Every paper follows the same format, and we'll give you the websites at the end that you can find those papers there. They follow the same format. You know how many short answer questions, how many long answer questions. So if you've practiced the exams, this will reduce your anxiety. So you want to study the material and you want to study far enough ahead to allow yourself the time to practice.
Yeah.
So at this stage now, you should be starting now. Your revision should be near enough complete. In other words, you should start to have your notes and everything ready. If you haven't got them done, this is the time now in the next couple of weeks, get all of your revision notes concise and ready to go, and then start to practice. So this is the time where you're moving in to this practicing. Okay. So after you've studied the material, you should know it. Practice it like you've taken the test, and as you practice, look for information you're missing or that is weak for you. This is the time to find out what you don't know. And this is a scary time. When you do an exam paper now, you're going to be disappointed with your result because you think, I should have done better than that. But this is the time to think, well, what did I not do well? And what did I not know in that paper? Where was I making a mistake? And sometimes you could find there could be a very, very simple mistake, like reading a graph and not reading the scale properly. So instead of the scales in millimeters and you write down 5 centimeters, then you're not going to get the mark because you haven't put the right units on. It's looking for those wee things that you make mistakes in, because with dyslexia, you'd be inclined to miss out some of the wee, wee insignificant details that you
Yeah.
think are insignificant, but really are giving you free marks. There's lots of free marks in every single exam, and it's really important that you get them. And that's things like reading from a graph or taking something from a table or a definition, that is actually maybe written within the question. It's finding those things there to help you. Those free marks, you should never, ever miss them. And lots of young people could lose 10, 15 marks in a paper because they don't pay attention to the detail. And if you have dyslexia, sometimes you miss out on those wee bits of detail. And that's what you need to look for and plan that you don't miss out on those free marks, as I would call them.
It's just about giving yourself the best chance, isn't it, Mary, to get over
Yeah.
the line, isn't it? And now is the time for you to, as you said, go over your revision notes or start your revision notes or get it in such a method that you can absorb it, and then start practicing the exam and giving yourself the best chance to represent yourself on that piece of paper on the day, isn't it?
It really is. And it's finding out now what you don't know. There's no point
Exactly.
finding it safer
Yeah.
for you as an individual to wait till the exam time to find
No.
out what you don't know, because we don't like to find out what
Yeah.
we don't know.
No.
But this is what you really need to do at this
Yeah.
stage.
Hmm.
Okay. So before the exam, it's all about getting everything down into really, really condensed information.
Yeah.
And you should be doing this now. Start big, reduce, condense your A4, and then right back down to your revision cards. So at this stage, you should have starting to get most of your information onto revision cards. Cover all the topics, not just the ones you like.
Yeah,
We
I know.
all are good at something,
Yeah.
and you think that's great, and you can just focus on them because you feel secure, you feel happy. That's great. I know that, and it gives you makes you feel as if you're studying well and you're revising well. But you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't deal with the things that you don't like. Prepare summaries of topics that you can adapt to a number of questions. There's going to be a topic, for example, on photosynthesis if you're doing science. If you're doing whatever text you're doing for English, there's going to be a question maybe on a character. So look for all of that information, put them in summaries that you can adapt to the type of question you're going to get. Don't learn answers off by rote because they are difficult to adapt. You might be able to learn for English maybe an introduction, which will be standardized for lots and lots of books and lots of text, and your teacher will be giving you them at this stage. But summaries are far more effective because then you can adapt to any question you're asked. Practice timed writing from past papers. How long is this question going to take me? Make sure you do not go over time. Write up your revision timetable. I know I'll go back over this again. Even if you don't keep to it, at least it'll make you aware of how much you still have to do. So if you don't get something done tonight that's on your revision timetable, you need to shift it to the next night.
Move it
To keep
forward.
yourself
Yeah.
in plan. And don't beat yourself up if you don't get something done tonight. Sometimes you're just not in the form to do it. But you just need to move it to the next night, and hopefully you'll feel better tomorrow evening and you'll be able to progress through it. But you need to make sure at the end of the week that you have the revision completed on that weekly timetable, because if you don't, it's going to add to your stress. If you're thinking, I have so much to do. So you might need to find near the end of the week, you need to put extra effort in to make sure you complete that week's revision. Okay. Complete as many past papers as possible. And I go over this over and over again. Use the published marking schemes to help you. They're there. They're published online. Look at the definitions from the syllabus or mark schemes. If you're asked to define something, it's usually 2, 3, or 4 marks. Make sure you find the definition in the syllabus or the mark scheme. They're there for you. Don't make up your own, because this makes it more difficult to remember. And if you follow the ones exactly in the mark scheme, you'll get the 4 marks. If you make up your own, you might only get 3 marks because you're maybe missing something. So learn your syllabus, learn your mark schemes and your definitions from them. They're there to help you. Use exemplar answers. There's lots and lots of people who've put up example, and the particular examination board, example A grade answers. Look at them and see if they help you. But don't try to learn them off by heart. Take them and look at the key points and put them into your revision notes. Reading the examiner's report helps you to identify and avoid the pitfalls of previous students. Look and see where other students have went down in that question, and they're really, really insightful, and they're great entertaining reading. Sometimes you think, oh my goodness, I could have done that so easily. That's missed that question out. 60% of the student only get 40% of this question right because. So you need to see the because, why they went wrong. And as students, we tend not to look at those mark schemes and those examiners' reports because we think they're not really relevant to us, but there's such a mine of information.
There's learning in it. There definitely is. Yeah.
And it's worthwhile reading them, but you could spend hours reading them and take away from your revision. So just be careful you don't get getting the balance there. And there's the website there. Everything is there. Exam material archive. Lots and lots of really, really good information. Don't go too far back on it because there might be slight changes in the syllabus or changes in the examination framework. Don't go back maybe more than 3 or 4 years, because you'll have enough within the past 3 years, I suspect, to be able to, to work through them. Okay. There's a revision checklist. You get lots and lots of these are online. They're available there for you to find. This is in school.ie with the 3 O's in it. Exam Centre. And basically, it shows what you have to do, for example, for English. So Leaving Cert English, if you're higher, there's one for the lower as well. So practice reading a variety of texts using the headings below to guide you. Understanding the text at literal level. Can you do that? A literal level simply means, can you look at a text and take out, how many, where did it happen, what date, the actual information. Can you understand some of the meaning behind text? And there were some examples there to find that. Can you identify their genre? That type of thing. And then all of that goes through and you literally tick it off. Can I do this? Because I'm going to need to do this in the examination. And back to this reinforcement again, and you'll be fed up with me saying this over and over again in this presentation. Practice, practice, practice. Practice testing forces you to search your memory to find and retrieve the information. And sometimes with dyslexia, we talk about getting things from your working memory or your short-term memory into your long-term memory.
Mm-hmm.
But we forget that we really also need to get it back out again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this retrieval that you need to be thinking about in the examination. How do I get the information back out that's already there? So what are going to be the prompts for me as an individual that's going to make me remember how to get the information back out again? So practice testing forces you to search your memory and do the exam questions under time conditions. So things like labeling diagrams, they're a really, really good revision tool. But can you remember that? If the diagrams, that's obviously a heart, you know all the parts of the heart. What happens if you go into the exam and the diagram they give you isn't the same as that one? You know, it's a different shape.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember where those things are? Or have you got to the stage in your long-term memory you could only remember if you get that diagram there? And the chances are you won't get that diagram because that's not from an exam paper, that's just from a textbook. So look at the diagrams in the exam paper because examiners tend to use the same diagram year after year after year, you know, because it's maybe worked particularly well. So just be mindful of those wee things that you could slip up
Mm-hmm.
on. You know the information really, really well. You know you can label all the different parts of the heart, all the different valves and all the rest of it, the artery and everything like that, the aorta, whatever. But if the diagram's different, can you still do it? So you need to practice in different diagrams to make sure you can. And that's all about your retrieval pathway.
Yeah,
And
and
do
that.
the questions, sorry,
Mhm.
under time conditions. Sorry,
Yes,
Mary.
yeah. No, you're grand. And I guess that's exactly what I was going to say there. It's about those pathways that we learned about in our webinar 1 and 2. So we've created those pathways for all that information to come into our working memory and our long-term memory. And now it's just finding a way to get that out. And we use the example of, pacing around your bedroom or pacing in your kitchen or asking your parent or sibling to help you to pull that knowledge out of your mind, or kicking the ball against the gable end of the house or whatever. Do you remember? So yeah, it's just about pulling that out as well as getting it in. So yeah, no, that's a really good example there of, and using the timed example or timed conditions as well is good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, if your parents, you know, are willing to help you or somebody's willing to help you, this discussion of exam papers is
Yeah.
really, really helpful. You
Yeah, it
don't have to
is.
do all of the exams,
No.
you know, when your papers through actually writing them down. Yes, you do have to do that as well.
Yeah.
But actually having that discussion around the exam papers, because sometimes that helps you as an individual remember being
Mhm.
sitting in your kitchen
Mhm.
and your mom or your daddy or your brother or your sister or somebody chatting through that paper,
Yeah.
and that could be the trigger that you need
That's the
to
light bulb,
actually
because
remember.
sometimes, exactly, sometimes what I think in my head or what I've read in from a passage or something, when I speak about it, it takes on a different meaning. It takes on a different understanding in my mind, because I've had a different way of another one of my senses has been pulled in to process that information. So yeah, it's really good to not only read a thing, not only write a thing, but speak a thing or walk a thing or kick a ball, trying to remember a thing and then get it back out to you. Yeah, so it's really important.
So you need to practice and you need to
Yeah.
practice as many times you possibly can.
Mhm.
And you need to know the command words. This is my
Mm.
thing that I get really upset about. I have seen so many young people, and I can still remember a girl when I'm at A levels, and the question was compare and contrast.
Right.
And all she did was compare. She didn't contrast, and she lost half her marks, and she dropped maybe 2 grades in her A level geography
Mhm.
because she didn't know understand how these command words work. You need to know what these are, and I cannot stress this enough. There is no other way around it. You must know what these are asking you to do, because if you don't, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have, you will not do well in these questions.
Mhm.
So state, if you see the word state, only a short answer is required, not an explanation or description. It can usually often be answered with a single word, phrase, or sentence. Only write the number of things they ask for. 1, 2. The number will be bold in the test. So if they ask for 2 things, 2 examples, state something and give 2 examples, you give 2 examples. You don't give 3. You're not going to get any extra marks for giving 3. And lots of young people give 3 examples, hoping the examiner will pick one or pick the 2 best out of it, which you probably will. But you've wasted time in that examination writing that third example out. So if they ask for one, you give one. Nobody's going to give you any bonus
Yeah.
marks for given two.
Hmm.
And lots of young people think examiners might think, well, I know an awful lot more here. They'll give you an extra mark. They cannot. There's only 2 marks for that question. So they're only allowed to give you 2 marks, no matter how well you do, or you give the best. If you give a PhD answer to that question, you'll still only get 2 marks. So be really careful of those
Careful.
things.
Yeah.
No, it's really important. And no, so state means a short answer.
Hmm.
Another where lots and lots of young people fall down on is use the information in the passage, the diagram, the graph, the table, etc. And you need to refer to the table, the graph, whatever is on that page. And the answer must be based on information given in the question.
Mm.
So if they ask you what was the population in India in 1963, you go to the table, the diagram, the graph, whatever is there, and you take that information straight back out again, and you put it down exactly as it is, including the units. If it's a physics exam and there's a graph and it's showing you maybe the energy or something like that, you make sure you put your units down, joules or whatever energy is on that particular paper. Unless the information given in the question is used, no marks can be given. This is black and white. If you give an answer that is not in that table, maybe your answer maybe is a better answer, or more factually correct, or more up to date. If they're asking something from India from 1963 and you say the population in India today is whatever it is in 2021, which is far more up to date information, that's not what you're being asked.
No.
You'll get 0.
Yeah.
So most of the information you need is given to you. These are the free marks that I talk about. There could be 5, 6 marks in this one question just from being able to read the diagram or the graph. So you must refer to what it's asking for. It could be reading information from the table, reading a number from a graph, describing what part of the diagram it's used for. So its job or why it's there. These are really, really important and really easy marks to get in an exam paper. Do not lose these marks because you haven't looked at the question.
Exactly. Yeah. Just take your time and read it. As you said, especially a young person that does have dyslexia might miss a little piece of the detail. So just read your question again. What's my understanding of it? Okay. Okay, I think I'm going to do this and this and this, and then just read it again just to be 100% sure that you haven't missed anything, and move on. Look for your command words. Look for your statement or your compare and contrast, whatever the trigger word is, and go with it, isn't it? Yeah.
It's really important. And look, reread what they're asking you. What are they asking me to find out here? If it's a graph, have a ruler and make sure you put the ruler up and across. Simple things like that. Because when you're under pressure, these are when you make those silly mistakes.
Yeah.
And and we all make them. But if you're prone to do this, and this is something your dyslexia makes you, sometimes back to what we talked about, understanding yourself as a learner.
Yeah.
Where would I make mistakes? If I'm making a mistake in my practice test here, I need to be really, really sure that I go to the examination, that I have a clear ruler and I have a colored ruler, whatever you want to have, that you can clearly follow lines and things like that, and you know where to look for the information.
Yeah.
And this is just to give you an example of a question. Very, very simple question. You think here, explain 2 natural causes of climate change. Oh, sorry. I need to go back here. Going too quickly. So explain, give reasons how, why. That's what that word means. 2, the word is there clearly. 2, there's 4 marks for this. So there's probably 2 marks for each section. Made by nature, not humans, natural causes. If you talk about climate change and you talk about people flying, you're not going to get any mark because it's not natural. So that's a very, very simple 1-sentence question. There are 4 marks, but there's lots and lots of things there you need to be aware of. Explain 2 things. You need to explain 2 things. Natural, which is not made by humans, and climate change is change in temperature. So what natural things causes the change in the temperature and the climate? And there's your 4 marks. Look out for those command words and take your time to think about them.
Exactly, yeah.
And if you've been doing past papers, you become familiar with this, and then you start to know what to look for. This is another one here as well. Describe. So in other words, say what they're called, maybe what they look like. Describe the stages. So how many stages are there? There's 4 marks. That's probably an indicator that it could be roughly 4 stages. And stack is a geographical word, which is something to do with coast. So you know that a coastal stack. Give you those ideas along there. Okay. This is from an English paper, and I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I just want to see how much information is given to you before you even start an exam. And this can be confusing. If you've never seen this before and you're going into your English paper, there's 50 marks here. Based on your reading of text 1, explain 3 points. Support your response with reference to the text. With reference to a Shakespearean play you've studied for your 219 Leaving Certificate course. So you must talk about Shakespearean play. You can't talk about anything else. Identify an image, a moment, or an episode. If you talk about anything that's not an image, a moment, or an episode, you're not going to get marks. Now, I'm not putting this up here to scare you, but if the first time you see this, when you go into your examination, that is going to really, really upset you. You're going to miss the key things in this. You need to look, every question paper will have the same thing based on the reading of the text. In text 1, reference to, explain, 3 points, look for these words and underline them in different colours. But you shouldn't be seeing this for the first time when you get your English paper on the day of the examination.
But that passage actually makes me, when I read it, it's word heavy, and I have to be slow and considered when I'm reading it, and then maybe go back over it. But exactly like you've done there, Mary, you've highlighted it with different colours, and by me putting, having my little 4 pen or my additional highlighter with me on the day, I can highlight those command words. So the question is almost giving me the answer, and then I have the knowledge to be able to answer the question from the pathways that I've created in my mind. So even though the question is really long and it looks really daunting, by breaking it down into those smaller pieces and into those smaller command words, it's actually, it's the question is giving me the answer.
And the reason it's so long, Mary, as well, is because they're giving you so much information and giving you so much guidance.
Yeah.
And they're giving you, or they're telling you need to talk about Shakespearean play for 2019. They're telling you need to explain. They're telling you need to, they're telling you what to do. But it can be quite daunting if you haven't been prepared for that. And it could be long before you even start. So read the instructions in the paper very carefully. Read them twice. If it says section A or B, then you put a big line under or. Make sure you're aware of any compulsory questions. So there are some papers that you will have a compulsory section, that everything in that section is compulsory. Know what they are and be able to do them. Take note of any instructions regarding choice of the question. So make sure if there's a choice, that you make that choice. You don't do 2 from section A and don't do anything from section B, because you won't get any marks in. Section B will be 0. Section A will be run very well, but you'll never make up that difference. And have the times worked out beforehand. Whenever you're under stress in the exam and you've got 3 hours to do the paper, and you think, well, that's 360s is 180 minutes. But what you might find in the examination, you might think 360s, that's 240 minutes. Those things happen. And then all of a sudden you've totally run out of time and you don't know how to do it. Work out your times beforehand. How long will I have for section A? How long will I have for section B? How long will I have for section C? And double check when you go into the exam that the times you've worked out beforehand are the same. They should be, they probably wouldn't have changed. Just double check just in case. But at least if you have that worked out beforehand, it takes a bit of pressure off you. And if they have changed, don't let it throw you. Just take it a couple of seconds and sit and work it out from there. This is the thing from the State Examinations Commission, their website here is really, really helpful. You choose the type, exam papers, choose the year, choose the examination, choose the subject, and you click, onto it, and all of the information is there for you to find. So please use that examination site. It's really, really helpful and will help you prepare for the exams better than anything else you will do. Don't panic if you don't see the questions you were expecting. They're there somewhere. Examinations have to be based on the syllabus. They can't make something up that's not in the syllabus. They can't suddenly decide that, we're going to talk about something this year. And also the other mistake a lot of people think, they're going to talk about something topical. Examinations are prepared 7, 8, 9 months in advance. So something that's topical now, it's not going to be an exam because they didn't even know it existed then at that stage. So don't panic. If you don't see what you're expecting, look carefully. They will be there somewhere. Can you see the clock? Do you have a watch? Do you have information? You can time yourself really, really well. Put your timing onto the exams when you need to stop. And if you're running out of time, you stop at that time, you leave a couple of blank pages in your book, and then you go to the next question. Because even if you get 100% in all of the questions, If you don't do one question, you're really going to struggle to do well in that exam. So stop and then move on.
Mhm.
Know what to expect, and back again, this thing again, have your times worked out beforehand. Okay, so really
Great.
that's the sections. We're looking at exams, and then we're going to look at the next webinar is going to further develop this whole idea. But the key thing you need to take out of this from, as a student, is you need to know your command words. You need to learn them. If you don't know what compare means, if you don't know what contrast means, if you don't know what state means, if you don't know what explain means, you need to find out what they are. And you need to have a discussion with somebody so you don't make that mistake of not giving the correct answer, not because you don't know the information or you haven't revised well enough, simply because you didn't understand what you're being asked to do. And that's where so many young people fall down,
Mhm.
because they didn't understand what they were expected to do, or they didn't follow the instructions carefully.
Great. Super. Thanks so much for that, Mary. So we're going to leave it there for webinar 5 today, and we're looking forward to seeing you again for our very last webinar, which will further develop exam techniques there, as Mary has said. Thanks, Mel. See you
Thank
soon.
you. Bye. Bye.